Hi guys, welcome back to Can Baby Surrogacy. This is Ethan, a embryologist who has worked in different IVF clinics in North America. If you are new here, this channel is all about IVF, surrogacy, egg donation, and everything in between. We break down the science in a way that's easy to understand, especially for intended parents who are navigating this incredible emotional and expensive journey. Today's topic is one I feel very strongly about. Does a poor embryo grade mean your IVF cycle is doomed to fail? My answer is absolutely not. Let's get into why. So what is embryo grading really? First, let's talk about what embryo grading actually is. In most IVF clinics, embryos are graded based on how they look under a microscope. There are several systems, but one of the most common is a Gardner grading system, which scores blastocysts using three components: the degree of expansion, a number from 1 to 6, the quantity of the inner cell mass, graded A to C, the quantity of the trophectoderm, also graded A to C. So, an embryo might be labeled as 4AA, which means it's well expanded and has both good inner cell mass and trophectoderm. Meanwhile, something like a 3BC would be considered lower grade by some standards. But that's the first thing I want you to understand. Grading is a visual approximation, not a genetic guarantee. Grading doesn't equal genetic health. You'd be surprised how often a perfect-looking embryo turns out to have a chromosomal abnormality. And on the flip side, I've seen C-grade embryos become perfectly healthy babies. As an embryologist, I've seen embryos that looked less than ideal on day 5, yet led to a successful pregnancies. I've seen patients transfer 5AA embryos that didn't implant, and later get pregnant with a 4BC. This is not rare, this is IVF. One study published in Fertility and Sterility found that lower grade blastocysts still had acceptable pregnancy rates, especially when PGT showed they were chromosomally normal. And why this matters for IVF and surrogacy patients. Now, if you're doing IVF for yourself, this information is reassuring. But if you are an intended parent going through surrogacy, this can feel even more stressful. You may only get a few embryos after egg donor cycle. Maybe only 1 or 2 embryos are considered high quality. And suddenly, that 4BC embryo feels like a backup plan. Or worse, a disappointment. But I'm here to tell you, it's not. A 4BC embryo can be your baby. It can be the beginning of your family. Let me share a real story with permission. A few years ago, we had a couple doing IVF with donor eggs. Out of 10 embryos, only 1 made it to day 6 and was graded 3cc. Our clinic advised them to consider a large cycle, but the couple wanted to try. The embryo was tested. PGT showed it was euploid, meaning genetically normal. So we transferred that single 3cc embryo into their surrogate. And guess what? 9 months later, their healthy baby girl was born. That embryo was their only one. It was graded poorly, but it was their miracle. Talk honestly about why clinics tend to push for higher graded embryos. It's not always about your success. It's also about their statistics. Clinics are ranked based on their live birth rate, so they want to transfer embryos that are most likely to stick. And statistically, yes, a 5AA embryo may have a better chance than a 4cc. But here's the catch. That doesn't mean you, the individual, won't succeed with a lower grade embryo. Remember, you only need one. What's frustrating is how embryo grading can emotionally destroy patients. I've seen intended parents cry over grades, obsess over difference between B and C, and blame themselves for what the lab reports say. And I want to be very clear here. Embryo grades are not a reflection of your worth, your donor's quality, or your future child's potential. They are merely tools, that's it. Embryos don't know what grade they got, and trust me, your baby won't care either. So if embryo grading isn't everything, what should you focus on? The genetic health of the baby. If you've done PGTA, this is far more predictive than visual grades. The quality of your clinic, how skilled are the lab techs, embryologists, and doctors. The health of your surrogate, a well-prepared uterine environment matters immensely. And the big picture. IVF is not a sprint, it's a journey, one embryo at a time. Don't let a letter grade break your heart before you even give that embryo a chance. A question I get often is, Ethan, should I even bother transferring a 4cc or 3bc embryo? My answer, yes, if that's what you have, and if it's been cleared genetically, absolutely try. As long as your doctor and embryologist agree that the embryo is viable, there is a chance. And sometimes chance is all we need. So let's wrap up with this. Embryo grading is one tool in IVF toolbox, but it's not the whole picture. And it's certainly not a guarantee of success or failure. If you're holding onto your C-grade embryo, don't give up. If your cycle didn't produce any 5AAs, don't desperate. If your doctor offers you a 3bc embryo for transfer, don't assume it's hopeless. Because sometimes the most unexpected embryos create the most unforgettable children. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumb up and subscribe. And if you are intended parents considering IVF or surrogacy, feel free to reach out. We help families navigate this journey every day. Drop your questions or personal stories in the comments below. I read all of them. I'd love to hear how your embryo surprised you. Until next time, I'm Ethan, your friendly neighborhood embryologist. Take care.